packed with traditional Chinese flavors. We have crispy meatballs wrapped in a silky sweet and sour sauce. Here's my version and my take on sweet and sour meatballs. Hi there, it's Cher here at School of Wok. Welcome back to another Flavour Friday. Today we are going to be making some delicious, juicy sweet and sour meatballs. So let's get cracking with marinating the meatballs. So here I've got about 350 grams of pork mince. Just going to get in here some ginger that's just been finely minced, along with some minced garlic as well. Now, in terms of seasoning, we also have about a teaspoon of five spice, not too much because it can otherwise be a bit overpowering. A little bit of sesame oil, so that's about a teaspoon of sesame oil going in. Next up, a little bit of salt and pepper. Can't forget the salt and the pepper. So here we are actually using ground white pepper for today. Going to use one egg yolk just to kind of bind everything together. Also, in terms of binding, we are going to use about a tablespoon of cornstarch. So all of those things in there, and then we're just going to go in with our hands and give it a really, really good mix, just to make sure everything is evenly distributed. Great, so next up, to shape the meatballs, you just need a bowl of water. Just to kind of wet your hands a little bit. Just that moisture from the bowl will just help to keep the meatballs, or stop the meatballs from sticking to your hands. Now, in terms of shaping, you just want to kind of get them into sort of, I would say, I don't know, about sort of golf-sized balls. I'm guessing that's about a golf-sized ball. I mean, the size really just depends on how big or small you want these meatballs to be. That's a really silly comment. So, I mean, duh, of course. So once you've made up your meatballs, make sure that they're sort of nice, regular sized, equal portions rather, so that everything cooks at a sort of even rate. What you want to do now is just dry out the surface of these balls a little bit. So we are just going to coat them in some cornstarch, make sure that they're well coated, so that the cornstarch actually adds another layer of protection for the meatballs, so they don't dry out too much when they go into the deep fat fryer. Next up, we're going to fry off the meatballs. So really nice to use wok for this, or a deep-sided frying pan, well, deep-sided saucepan rather. Just to test the oil, you should be able to put the end of a wooden spoon, etc., into the oil, and that should start to fizz and sizzle, and that's how you kind of get an idea, right, that oil is hot enough for you to start your deep frying. Now be really, really careful, just drop the balls in a little bit, just very gently dropping them in, making sure that they don't splatter too much. And usually when I'm deep frying something like meatballs, because they do tend to fall apart if you move them too much, I like to just give them about 30 seconds or so in the hot oil before I even go in there with a spider or a slotted spoon, because otherwise you might run the risk of them just breaking open. The meatballs have had about a couple of minutes now and looking nice and golden, so we are going to just take them out for a moment. Straight onto kitchen paper to drain, and we're then going to, of course, for a nice crispy exterior, we're going to do a double fry. So let that oil heat up again in that wok till it gets really quite hot, and then we will pop these meatballs back in again. Now the oil's heated up properly again, we will just drop these meatballs back in for a second fry, and that only takes about a minute or so, until they get a little bit darker in color. So literally just another minute in the wok, and you can see nice deep golden color. That is exactly what you want. We're just going to drain them onto the kitchen paper again. And when that's done, we will then prep some vegetables to go into our stir fry. So I've just chopped up about half a green pepper into just sort of chunks, as well as about half a red pepper, and also about half of a largish sort of onion. So those will be your sort of your typical things to go into a sweet and sour dish. Now next up, we are going to make a sauce for the stir fry as well. So we're going to start with about 4 tablespoons of strawberry jam, for a bit of color. And traditionally, we would have used things like red yeast rice, or in some commercial settings, they would be using things like food coloring, but we just find that with strawberry jam, you get a little bit of flavor as well as that red color going into the dish without too much fuss. We're also going to pop in about 3 tablespoons of a sambal, and then about 100 mils of tomato ketchup, again for the color as well for some sweetness. Next up, we've also got about 2 tablespoons of rice wine. So here I've got some shaoxing and an equal amount of rice wine vinegar. So that's the vinegar or the acidity going into the dish. So about 2 tablespoons of that. We also have about 100 mils of pineapple juice to go in. Completely optional as well. We'll see if we need it for later, but I've got in here some chicken stock, so a homemade chicken stock. But I will just hold off on the chicken stock. Might not need it for this dish, depending on how saucy the sauce gets. And so we'll just keep it to the side for now. And that pretty much is my sauce completed. So typical stir fry, we're just gonna heat up our wok super hot. And we're just gonna get a couple of tablespoons of oil in there. So always hot wok and a cold oil going in, just give it a bit of a swirl, and then straight in with our peppers and onions, just pushing away from you so that there's no oil spitting back at you. And we're just going to use the back of our ladle, just kind of getting a bit of char with the peppers. We've got some nice char with the peppers, and the onions have gone a bit translucent, so they're pretty much done. So in go our meatballs. We'll just let that sort of heat through for about another 30 seconds or so. In the meantime, just stirring through my sauce just to make sure that everything is nicely sort of combined. I've also got some pineapple chunks to go in. And now straight in with the sauce. And we'll just let that sauce bubble up for about another 30 seconds or so, just kind of reducing it ever so slightly, and you want to just make sure that everything is nicely coated in that delicious, shiny, velvety sauce. So time to plate up. We're just going to get all of our lovely coated meatballs on there. And it just kind of looks really nice with, you know, the different colors of the green of the peppers, the red of the peppers, along with the yellow of the pineapple. And then just as a final flourish, we're just going to get some green onions, finely sliced green onions here for a bit of garnish. And here you have it, a very classic sweet and sour meatballs. Time to do a little taste test. Just gonna grab one juicy meatball. Here goes. I mean, you just cannot go wrong with a classic like that. It's got that sweet, sour, and just that hint of that 5 spice coming through. Super delicious. And you know, doesn't take much time at all to whip up. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Flavour Fridays. It's Cher signing off, but before I do, just a quick question for you. What's your favorite type of meatball? Let us know in the comment section below, and till next time, take good care. I'll see you soon.